Okay, Nigel, we're ready to start now.
Thank you. Croeso, nos without pawb. Good evening and welcome everybody to the Economy in Place meeting on the 19th of August 2020 at 5:30. We are a scrutiny committee and we are all attending remotely this evening. All microphones will be muted unless you indicate you wish to speak, at which point I will call out your name and you will need to turn your microphone on. All members and officers to control their own mics, with Dawn keeping an overview and switching off mics so there aren't too many of us talking at any one time. Can I remind members that if you wish to speak, to use the raised hand function. If you're using a laptop, you need to click the participants icon at the bottom of the screen, left-hand side, which will bring up a side panel and a list of participants of the meeting. At the bottom of the side panel, there are a number of icons. If you wish to raise your hand, click on the raised hand icon, and a blue hand will appear on the side of at the side of your name as an alert to me as chair that you wish to speak. If you are using an iPad, the participants icon is at the top of the screen on the right-hand side. You can also use the chat facility. If you're using a laptop and you want to use the chat facility, click on the chat icon at the bottom of the screen. You can send a message to everybody that's at the meeting or to an individual. Take care to choose the right option. If you are using an iPad, click on the More button at the top right-hand corner of the chat. I would remind members that this meeting is being live streamed, so be very careful of what you're saying this evening. We will start off this meeting with the apologies for absence.
Yes, just one apology from Councillor Mike Priestley.
Thank you very much.
I've got another one, Chair.
Oh, yes.
I've got another one. Councillor Greg Robbins, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll record that as well. We now have declarations of interest, code of local government conduct. Any declarations of interest? No? Okay, we'll move on to urgent matters.
I'm not aware of any, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we'll now move on to item 4, which is minutes, to agree the minutes of the last meeting held on the 4th of March 2020. I will ask members to show their hands if they agree with the minutes. They don't need to vote individually, so could you just please raise your hands if you're happy with the minutes? I think everybody's got their hands up there. Councillor Thomas, did you raise your hand? Are you happy with the minutes?
I am, but as I wasn't at the previous meeting, I didn't raise my hand.
Ah, right. Okay, well done. So I think we can say that those minutes have been approved.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we'll now move on to item 5, which is the minutes of the local area forum, East and South. These minutes are to be noted. Is Councillor Charlie McCoubry with us by any chance? Oh,
yes, I'm here, Chair.
Okay, do you have any comments, Charlie?
Sorry, Chair, I missed that.
Do you have any comments on the minutes?
Just one of my froze out there.
Do you have any comments on the minutes?
No, I'm happy with the minutes. No comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Aaron, are you happy with the minutes for your area forum South?
Yeah, dwi'n hapus efo...
Yes, I'm happy with the minutes. I just want to note that we proposing that Councillor Ifor Lloyd and Councillor Sue Lloyd-Williams are joining our forum.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, well, we will note that. Is everybody happy to note those minutes? Could you please just show your hands if you are? Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 6, which is to review the forward work programme. Dawn, do you want to take
Yes,
over here?
yes, of course I will. So before you members, you will have your forward work programmes in front of you. So you've got the economy in place forward work programme and you've got the combined forward work programme. I've been working with officers to reschedule reports on the forward plan, which have been deferred due to the pandemic. So I can now confirm we've got reports for the following meetings for the 12th of October, 21st of October and the 18th of November. And you can see which reports are due there on the forwards plans. And I am still working with officers to schedule those reports that have no dates. Obviously, it's been difficult trying to reschedule some of the reports because of pressures of work. I'm working with James Harland at the moment to look at when we're going to allocate dates for the LDP. Obviously, they're working with the Welsh Government and looking at their existing timetable. So there'll be a meeting of the LDP Task and Finish Group shortly to have a look at that. And then once that's been agreed, we can start allocating reports for the LDP. Also, Sandy Cove Task and Finish Group. Can I ask a request? We need to extend the work of the group, obviously, due to the pandemic, and I'm requesting an extension to March 2021. I have run it past the chair. He's happy with that. So obviously, I would like members to agree whether they would agree that extension, please. And then also, can I remind members, we've also got a joint social care and health and economy in place overview and scrutiny committee on the 14th of October at 4:30, and that's to consider the partnership agreement between the council and the third sector. I think this was due to come just before lockdown, so now we need to re-look at that. So that's it. So like you say, just if you can agree the forward work programmes and if you can agree to the extension to the work of the Sandy Cove Task and Finish Group, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So if members are happy with the forward work programme and the extension to the Sandy Cove Task and Finish Group, could you please show? Is everybody happy? Any other comments? Is anybody unhappy? No? Okay, Dawn, I think that's been approved. Thank you. So we'll now move on to item 7, questions for Cabinet members.
I'm not aware of any, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Item 8 then, item 8A, annual section 106 monitoring report and future approach to section 106 and the community infrastructure levy. And this is being presented by James Harland. Good evening, James.
I'm sorry, Chair. We've got Richard Clark presenting the report.
Oh, okay then.
Richard is with us.
Well, good evening, Richard. Welcome. Thanks for being with us, and take it away when you're ready.
Good evening. Thank you, Councillor Nigel. James is on leave, and I am now in post as the new Planning Obligations Officer, so it's appropriate for me to take you through this instead. So it's the first year I've put together the Section 106 monitoring report. You'll have had the main report and the appendix that's got the detailed information about Section 106 obligations. I've got a short through of the points, but obviously if there's anyone more detail, we can do that. So I'll just try and start this up. Right, hopefully you can see.
We can, yeah.
The presentation, is that working? Excellent.
Yes.
So I'll try and keep this fairly brief. You'll be pleased to know. But as an overview, many members will be well aware of what planning obligations are and why we collect them and for what purpose. But I thought just for it might be helpful just to have a very brief overview of what they are and how we seek them. They they're either money or non-financial obligations we can request from developers in certain circumstances as part of planning applications when they're needed to mitigate harm from development. So they have to meet these three tests. They've got to be necessary to make the development acceptable in planning. They need to be directly related to the development and fairly and reasonably related in scale and kind to the development. So in essence, if you've got one house being built, you can't ask a developer to spend £500,000 upgrading the highway. That wouldn't be reasonable or appropriate. So for larger schemes, we ask for on-site works such as public open space or affordable housing, and for smaller schemes, we often seek a financial contribution instead of that. And obligations can be controlled through condition, but generally speaking, what we're talking about here is Section 106 legal agreements that are signed by the applicant, the council, and any other interested parties to secure those obligations from the development. And so that's that. Now, as I said, I've recently come in post as the Obligations and Community Infrastructure Officer, covering a wide range of things, bringing together some different topic areas that I was previously doing in my role as planning officer, also some matters that were previously being done by other officers within the strategic planning policy team. So that includes working on viability assessments with applicants, developers, to negotiate planning obligations. I'll be looking to re-establish the Section 106 monitoring group that has been on hold a little bit for a while. And the community infrastructure levy is something that members may be aware of. That is a different type of planning obligation that local planning authorities can introduce if they want to, which is something that's calculated based on the floor area of a development and is less negotiable than Section 106 obligations. But there may well be changes afoot at the national level as to SIL. So we're sort of waiting on changes that may come from Welsh Government on that. But in the meantime, we're trying to progress SIL as best we can in parallel to the replacement local development plan, and wait for any changes that come. You may have seen me at planning committee appearing when there are relevant applications coming in, and there are various other topic areas coming under my remit in this role. But again, there's a more full list of those things in the main report as well. And this post and a few branches of Section 106 and planning into place really to manage and make the process more transparent. Now, coming into some of the numbers about planning obligation in the last 12 months covers, we've got here the expenditure and Section 106 balances. Now, Section 106 obligations are requested for specific purposes, which are broken down into a number of different infrastructure types there. And we've had a total of about £415,000 spent in the 2019-20 financial year on a range of infrastructure. We've got
Sorry, Richard, you keep cutting out, unfortunately. Has everybody else been able to hear Richard?
Yeah, coming through most of the time.
There's a further £1.6 million that is available for expenditure in the coming years as well. So all of that money is subject to criteria that's contained in the legal agreements that control those. So so it's a bit more specific, but they're like that for simplicity here. Most planning obligations have a period within which the money has to be spent, and previously that was 5 years. We're trying to now give us a little bit more flexibility in its expenditure. No money was repaid in the last 12 months, but we have a small amount of money that may need to be in the next 12 months if that isn't spent. Spoken to Vic Turner about this, and he's looking into whether there is a need for that to be spent or not. And the developer in that case was Cartrevi Conwy on the serial development on Trinity Avenue in Llandudno. And we've had 12 Section 106 agreements signed during the financial year, with a grand total of £737,171 included. Now, there would have been further obligations included in those 106 agreements for non-financial obligations for things like on-site affordable housing and highways works that were to be done by the developer for the financial elements of those Section 106 agreements. So I think that's it for the presentation, really. So,
Well, thank you very much, Richard.
There's further detail in the report if anyone else has any questions.
Yeah, so I'll put it to the floor. Any members got any questions for Richard? So we've got Councillor Donald Milne has got his hand up first. John, could you put your hand up on the screen, please? The blue hand on the screen. But Donald Milne, you're first.
Yes, just a simple question. On that last chart, remaining balances, including commitments. Have we actually received this money? Is there still some amount outstanding from developers, or are we basing this figure purely on what we are owed rather than possibly what we've received?
No, the remaining balance, that is what we have in the bank available to spend.
So effectively, are there some planning agreements out there that we are due money on?
Yeah, yes, there are some of those. There are some of those as well, but that isn't included in that £1.6 million figure, which is the remaining balance. So if we go back to the bear with me for a second. So if we look at in the table, Section 106 agreement signed in the last 12 months with a total of £737,000, we won't yet have received money degree. So
Richard, sorry, can I ask that you turn your video off, please? It's just that your sound is not great. Can I ask that you turn your video off and just have audio on, please? It just might be easier for the members to hear you.
I think he's frozen now.
Yes.
Are you still there, Richard?
Oh, it looks like he's gone completely now.
IT always lets you down when you don't want it to.
I know. Can I suggest perhaps we go on to Anne's and Sharon's
Yeah.
report, and then what we'll try and do, we'll try and get Richard back into the
Try and get him back.
meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Thank
that's fine.
Thank you.
So in the meantime, members, we'll move on to item 9A, the Welsh Public Library Standards Annual Return for 2018/19. I think that should be not 29, surely. The Welsh Government Assessment, presented by Anne Lloyd-Williams and Sharon Jones. Thank you for being with us this evening, Anne and Sharon. Please take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to start with the report and then pass over to Sharon Morgan, who'll go through the detail. As you mentioned, this report is for 2018-19. It's been rather a long time in coming to you, because I think it was one of the first committees that was actually cancelled, that it was scheduled for a March Scrutiny committee. So Sharon and I appear in front of you every year with a report on the Welsh Public Library Standards. In Wales, the Welsh Government monitors the provision of a comprehensive and efficient library service through the Welsh Public Library Standards, because we are a statutory service under the Public Libraries and Museums Act 1964, and in Wales the Minister has to ensure that we are compliant. We're currently, and we were in 2018-19, we're currently in the sixth quality framework, which is connected and ambitious, which builds on a number of previous frameworks. And what the frameworks actually do is they measure compliance in both qualitative and quantitative information. And Sharon will go through some of the detail with you in a minute. So the framework is to look at library services across the whole of Wales, how they comply. They are useful because they are publicly available, so the public can look and see how efficient and effective the services are. So they're meant to be transparent, easily understandable, and act as a driver for improvement of library services as well. So every year we provide a return to the Welsh Government. Those returns are assessed by Welsh Government officers, heads of library services and external experts as well. And then we get an assessment back from Welsh Government. So members will know that in previous years we haven't had very good assessments, but in 2016-17, following a programme of modernisation of the service, we met all the standards for the first time. And this year's assessment, I think, is quite positive. We met 11 of the core entitlements in full and partly met one. And of the quality indicators, which have got targets, we met 8 in full, 1 in part, and didn't achieve 1. And we'll talk you through those in a minute. And I'll come back to the Welsh Government's assessment later as well. So I shall pass you on to Sharon now. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. If we look at section 3.8, which is on page 92, and as Anne mentioned, we met 11 core entitlements in full and part met 1. 3.8.2, we didn't meet the library services strategy, policies and objectives, vision, expectation in having in print and online our strategy. This was due to the fact that we were working through the end of our previous strategy, the modernising libraries, and as we all enjoyed the opening of the Conwy Culture Centre at the end of last year, and that was the end of that strategy. So we had prepared a draft strategy for 2020 to 2025, and it was due to go to public consultation, but the lockdown affected our timetable on this. Therefore, the draft strategy will now be reviewed, taking into consideration the renewal programme. So looking at the quality indicators with targets, we have 16 of these, and we have 8 that we met in full, one met in part and one that we didn't achieve. And 3.9.2, we detail the appropriate reading material quality indicator, which we didn't meet. Having spent £174,000 on reading material, the population-based quality indicator would expect that for Conwy, 254,000 was spent on stock. However, we were benefiting from £75,000 worth of capital business case, which enhanced our budget. The part met was the staffing levels and qualifications in 3.9.3, as we didn't meet the total number of staff. To meet this target, which is again based on the population, the service requires that we have 42 full-time equivalent staff, but the budget cuts led us in 2018-19 to having 37.6 members of staff full-time equivalent. We did meet the number of library staff with the qualifications, but that would be the last time, as due to staffing restructures, the number of professional staff has been reduced. And then looking at impact measures on the next page, we have a significant amount of detail, obviously, in the report, which is in full detailed in the appendices. We did complete a user survey during the year, and we had over 2,000 people return on the adult survey and over 300 on the children's survey. We were very pleased with the details, which I will talk in a bit more detail when we talk about consultation. Excluding the financial indicators, our performance was above or equal to the Welsh median on the majority of the impact measures, and again those are detailed on the page there. Our operational expenditure was reduced during the year on the previous year, but it was above the Welsh median, which is £1.82. Again, our percentage expenditure on staff and other operational costs was above the Welsh median, but our capital spend was clearly high due to the culture centre developments at Conwy. We are expected to produce some case studies as part of our return to the Welsh Government as well, which obviously gives some colour maybe to the experiences of our customers coming into the experience our services. 3 case studies from the year. We had the coding club example, where a young girl who attended the coding club at Conwy shared her experience, and we also talked of the very positive partnership we've had with the local secondary school at Llandudno, with Ysgol John Bright, with some year 7 pupils, where we had talking of the shadowing of the Kate Greenaway Awards with Calip, so that was very positive experience that they shared. But the one of the very proud examples that we have is our experiences with the reader model of shared reading, and one of the Mind Cymru service users who attended the group at Cohen Bay Library gave a heartfelt case study of the experiences that led to her dealing with her extreme anxiety. She was on a high level of medication, suffering excessive sleep, and from her experience, having attended the group at Cohen Bay Library every week, she progressed on a journey to be in a position to feel strong enough to lead the group at the end of that journey. It's facilitated by one of the staff, one of the librarians in the library service, and the model is that group members can choose to read aloud, share personal reflections, or just listen to other group members, and through this they form connections with the literature and with each other. She says that when she had the invite to join the shared reading group, she was reluctant to go. She had received a serious mental health diagnosis that left her wondering whether she would ever be able to engage in a fulfilling life again. When she came to the library, which took her a huge amount of courage, she found herself in a position where she felt that she had the confidence to speak up, and she felt that her internal dialogue of self-criticism and doubts had been quietened while she was in the room reading, and this was in the first session. as her experience and her confidence increased, she undertook a course to become one of the leaders of the group. And I think the sentence says a lot about what her positive time at the library led to. I can't believe that I am now at a place where I look forward to leading a group. I want to help people feel like I did that first time, the feeling of being alive again, of being more than a mental health diagnosis. It sends shivers down my spine every time I read that. To conclude the more detailed part of the report, if I just refer to section 5, and again this talks of the experiences that our customers have had in our library buildings or using our facilities online. 87% of adults felt that the library had made a difference to their lives. 90% of children felt the same. 82% of adults felt that the library had helped them develop new skills, and 97% of adults considered the library to be an enjoyable, safe and inclusive place. And during the year as well, we had an extensive consultation and review of the home and mobile library service. So thank you, and I'll hand over to Anne. Diolch.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to sort of come back with some feedback that we've had on the report. A cabinet member wanted to draw attention to the really pleasing results that have come from the visitor surveys, that our customers continue to recognise the work that's been done in their libraries, and he wanted in particular to thank the library staff for delivering excellent customer service in spite of reducing resources. And I just want to just put in a little note, over the lockdown period, our library staff have been the front line for the community support service, and have been fielding calls from people who've been shielded, who've been self-isolated, and have been given people an awful lot of help and support over the past few months. So because libraries haven't been sort of physically open, they have carried on providing good customer information and services to the public. And just come back to the Welsh Government assessment, Conway's performed well against the library frameworks and is delivering for its communities in recent years. However, they just wanted to note that adequate resourcing is key to ensuring it can continue to develop and respond to changing user need, and the authority should consider carefully its future investment in the service to enable it to maintain and build on its achievements. Our budgets have been cut significantly over the past few years in keeping with other services. However, I do want to point out that the authority has actually been really very helpful in providing us with capital business cases which have managed to support our budgets going forward. So we had extra funding for our book stock. We've also this year had money for the replacement of some of our public access computers as well. And just a little plug, Llandudno and Colwyn Bay Library are providing access currently to people who want to use computers, and other libraries are following suit with Conway tomorrow, I think, Sharon. So please draw attention to people who need access to computers for digital access. So how are we meeting our cuts going forward? There will be a new strategy. As we mentioned previously, we had hoped to bring it to the meeting now, but in view of COVID, we decided to defer it and relook at how we need to be providing our services going forward. So I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you all, and happy, both of us, to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne and Sharon. We've got a first hand up, which is Councillor Peter Lewis.
Well, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. I think the service should be congratulated on this report. I've got a question for Sharon, though. I think perhaps the Welsh Library Service perhaps should align themselves with the situation financially for local authorities, and perhaps realign their view on expenditure on acquisitions. But I'm sure Sharon will be aware that there is a number of books that are actually given to the library service, and I just wondered whether or not a value can be put on those in terms of acquisitions towards this figure you've quoted. Thank you.
So you mean the number of donations that we receive?
Yes.
To the service, yeah. I think that the guideline has been that those aren't included. Historically, that was their viewpoint on that, but that's something that could be requested on their guidance on that again.
I should push for it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Peter. Any committee members got any questions?
I think Councillor Chris Hughes has got a question. His hand's up.
Is it? Oh, I can't see Chris on here, but I've got Pat. But Chris, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I know how hard Sharon and Anne work to try and ensure that they deliver the best service they can. And I know how disappointed they will be that, well, that we haven't met all the standards this year. But I know that I just want to congratulate them on the standards that they have achieved. And hopefully in the future, the council can look at additional resources, because for an awful lot of people, this is a very vital service that shouldn't be one of those that is the first to be cut when there are difficult times.
Thank you. Councillor Pat Hebron.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank Sharon and Anne for their presentation, and I'd like to congratulate the service on what they've done. In relation in particular to the case studies, some of the areas that they've been reaching out to, I'm a librarian, I work with teenagers in the college, and I just know how difficult it can be to reach you know, readers of a certain age after 11, and the fact they're actually going out to John Bright's and doing a reading group has to be commended with you know, this age group. And also I'd just like to say about the coding club, that is really good. It's good practice, it's a good investment in the future for our young people, and the fact the libraries are doing something like this, it's really good for future employment for our area as well. And finally, I'd just like to say about the shared reading, what you're actually doing with mine there, you know, you are reaching out to a lot of people who feel isolated, and you're helping them to develop confidence. And I know a lot about shared reading, I've done shared reading as well, and it is invaluable for our community and for the people who are in it, and for those who might feel excluded from that community. In terms of the staffing levels, you know, the staffing levels have gone down, and, you know, in terms of what might be the future in relation to the pandemic and everything, I think, you know, professional staff are particularly needed, and I noticed you've gone down slightly with them. Maybe I've misread that, but, you know, so you do need professional librarians there who might have to think creatively and apply their ideas to the service. And I notice also you're using an awful lot of volunteers already. So, you know, it's as much as the brilliant work volunteers do, you do need the staff, and you need staff who've been trained and who are qualified. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Any other members? Oh, Councillor John Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. I did put the hand, but I don't know where it went. I know. Well, I have to say that the Culture Centre in Conway has been a huge success. Truly, truly. The residents of Conway, the visitors to Conway, people who live in Abergele come to Conway because of the Conway Library, just to have a look maybe. But more and more people are joining the library and taking part in the activities. So it's a huge success, and I'm sure we'll see in future years that that success will follow through, and you will get You will reach the targets, Anne and Sharon, no problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I would agree. The Culture Centre is an iconic building, and it's, you know, we're very, very lucky to have it. On a personal note, I'm just looking at some of the figures here, and, you know, you got virtual visits, over 1,500 compared to the average in Wales at 885. Active borrowers are up, computer use is up, and of course the volunteers, you know, the residents who cherish the library and use it, and you're providing an excellent service, and congratulations to you all, and long may it continue. I understand, you know, that times are difficult and budgets, you know, are being cut in all departments, but you can hold your head high. You've done a wonderful job, and I thank you very much on behalf of the residents of Conway and the residents of Town and Kimmel Bay with our little community library, which we are very proud of.
Can I just thank you very much, Mr. Chair. That was a very nice summary. Thank you for that.
No problem. Okay, so do we have to have a vote on this?
Yes, if we can. So what I will do is, if you read out the recommendations, I'll call out the names and they can say whether they're for, against or abstain.
Okay, let me just get to the page. So the recommendation is that we accept. Okay. Is it on my bit of paperwork here that members?
Do you want me to
What
read
is the
it out, Nigel?
recommendation?
Okay. That members fully consider the feedback given in Welsh Government's assessment and approve the annual return for 2018-19. So
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, so I'll read out
Thank you, Dawn.
the members' names. So Councillor Carol Beard. Sorry, Carol, I can't hear you.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Councillor Phil Capper.
Approved.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
For.
Sam Cotton.
Approved.
Keith Eales, I don't think he's in the meeting, is he? Councillor Pat.
Approved.
Councillor Chris Hughes.
Approved.
Councillor Ian Jenkins.
Oh. Casino.
In favour.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Abdul.
A big yes.
Councillor Don Milne.
For.
Councillor Roger Parry.
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor John Roberts.
Casino.
For.
Councillor Michael, I don't think is here. Councillor Nigel.
Approve.
Councillor Bob.
Catino.
Thank you. Councillor Joan.
Oh, most definitely.
And Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Yeah, obliged.
For.
So that recommendation is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are we going to go back to the previous?
Yes, I think Richard is in the meeting. I think. Richard, can you hear us?
Hello. Yes, I can. I'm here.
Ah. Great.
Yes. Apologies for my disappearance before. So, shall I? I'll pick up where we left off. As far as I remember. Sorry, I can't remember who asked the question about the money that had been signed in agreements and whether it was included in the money available or not.
I think it was Councillor Don Milne, if I'm right.
Councillor Don, yes. We have. There are a huge number of agreements that have been signed, and the money isn't due and hasn't been paid for various reasons. A lot of the time, the Section 106 agreements will include the timing for when the money is due to be paid, whether that's on commencement of the development or completion or occupancy of the houses. So, of course, if the development hasn't taken place, then the 106 agreements may remain in force, but the money isn't due to us. So that isn't included in the balance. So there was the remaining balance figure of £1.6 million only includes the money that we've actually received. So that's the money that has been paid to us from the developers and is then available for us to spend.
Okay, thanks very much, Richard, and thanks very much for keeping track of all these complex figures.
I'm doing my best, thanks.
Okay. I've got Councillor Anne with a hand up. I hope it's for this agenda item and not the previous one. Councillor Anne?
Yeah, thanks very much, Nigel. No, it is for this agenda item.
Excellent.
Okay, Richard, I mean, first of all, I'd like to start by saying congratulations on your new appointment and also for this your first report in your new role. I think, you know, reflecting on the content of the report, it's just good to see this information coming through now to democracy on a regular basis. Maybe a sort of little suggestion I might make that you might want to consider is, I think, you know, we've got 1.6 million, I think, unattributed in terms of spend, and we've got, was it 700 grand to spend in this year. It would be good to see the big picture here, and by that what I mean is by ward information, so that we're actually able to see what level of investment that there's there to be able to be made on the back of the development that's happened, so that all the time we're taking an at a glance view of the bigger picture. So perhaps you could just sort of think about that for me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I think it is a little bit more complicated, as you're probably aware. Some of the money that comes in will be available to be spent in quite a wide area. There's every agreement is different in terms of the criteria for expenditure. So it will be quite tricky with some of them to define where you're for, say, at a community council level. But if it's done on the basis of where the development took place, then that's something that I can look at.
Yeah.
But with the number of agreements that we have, it's partly going to be down to practicalities of sorting the data to find that. But no, I take that on board, and I'll see what I can do for next year.
Great. Well, that's brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Richard. A couple of questions just as well, if that's okay. First one is, who's responsible for driving spend and for delivering the outcomes for the community? And you'll know the background to that in terms of my own ward. You know, there's quite a bit of frustration around the timing between these things being due and actually getting community benefit landed on the ground for the people who are obviously having to live with the development. So that's the first question. Who's responsible for driving spend and delivering outcomes? Because I didn't see that in the snapshot of the job spec that you've got. And then the second question is, what's the role of the ward member in developer discussions and agreements? You won't probably be aware, but on Monday, the Democratic Services Committee is actually looking at a revised member officer protocol. So I just thought it was a useful question to bring to the table tonight, because again, I'm not sure if it's written down what is the role of the member in those discussions and agreements. I know personally what my involvement was, but I'm not sure if that's written down and specified, so I thought it might be useful to raise. So a couple of questions. Thanks very much.
Right, okay. Thanks. I mean, in terms of the time lag between agreements being signed and the money being spent and those community benefits coming through, then of course there can be a few delays to that process. I mean, for a start, there's the time between the agreement being signed and the development taking place, which we have no control over. There's a 5-year period for planning application, so the developer might not start the development until nearly 5 years later. and there'll be trigger points in the agreement that set out when the money should be paid. And I know that you're well aware that the money isn't always paid when it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that is an issue. It's some developers are probably better than others for that, but we have our planning enforcement who are responsible for chasing money when it's overdue. And there's, I mean, the penalties for overdue payments, really it comes down to an increase in money based on the interest to be paid on those payments. If it's delayed, I don't really know of if there's much else that we can do other than increasing the size of increasing the number that's on the invoice that we're asking from them. And once the money is paid, then whose responsibility it is to then make the community benefits happen probably depends on the type of obligation that it is. If it's for something very specific, like some highways works and that kind of thing, then responsibility is probably going to be with ERF, with the highways because they will have requested the money for a very specific project, so it'll be for them to deliver it. And for other obligations, whether it's things like open space that are calculated based on the scale of a development, but the money isn't then requested for a specific, isn't necessarily requested for a specific project, then it's in that case it's probably more for local members can then have more sway in driving projects, and it's useful when the people who've got the feet on the ground in the local areas have that local knowledge on where that money needs to be spent to benefit the communities. So I do think that that it would be useful for local members to have more knowledge about the money that's available, because I think some members are probably better than others in that respect for being proactive on looking to spend the money. So obviously I'm, as part of this process, I'm raising awareness with relevant officers when money is getting close to being paid back, if the timescale for expenditure is getting closer. And so, but in between that time, then there are just too many of those obligations for me to be chasing around to ask people to spend the money, really. So it's a mixture of officers in the relevant departments and local members to really try and get the money spent in the right places.
Mm. Thanks for that response, Richard. I mean, I do understand your perspective on that. I think probably as a local member, though, I would suggest maybe this is something that Councillor Charlie could maybe pick up, because I think there can be quite a delay between money being banked by Conway, if you like, for these community benefits and things being landed in the ground. And of course what happens is value gets eroded over time, and whilst members will obviously mither and push and pester, obviously they're not responsible for driving. So I think that's probably something, what I'm hearing is it's not within your remit, and it's one of those things that seems to just be suspended in midair. So that's maybe just something for Councillor Charlie perhaps to think about. So thanks for your response on that. So what about the developer discussions, Richard, and the role of the member in those?
I think it is important for members to be involved in the process. Of course, all these obligations will relate to planning obligations, and so local members should be aware of developments that are taking place. And so I think one of the key points is that, of course, the obligations must meet those three tests that I read out at the start of my presentation, really. And so, although yes, there are a lot of things that are that may be on the wish list of local members, then it's important that we bring it back to the fact that these are planning obligations that must be related to the proposed development, and we've got to make sure that they meet those tests in case we have to deal with potential legal challenges further down the line. So it's obviously very helpful if members raise awareness with probably myself, really, and case officer in DM, of any particular community infrastructure issues that may be exacerbated by a potential development. But a development can't be expected to foot the bill for a upgrading of a whole, say a play area that was already needed replacing. It's got to be proportionate to the proposed development. That's probably an important point. It's striking that balance, really, between the impact of the development and what's reasonable to ask for.
So does that mean, therefore, that the ward member's role is down, and if you like, as part of the process, and therefore ward members will always be included within that, which is my real sort of reason for asking?
Well, ward members would be are ward members automatically notified as part of planning when planning applications go out at all? I'm not sure off the top of my head what the notification process
not
is.
specifically automatically notified, but obviously there is a general publication, isn't there, of all?
There is, yes.
Yeah. So yeah.
And I definitely encourage ward members who have concerns about the impact of specific developments to speak to either myself or the case officer in development management about that, and see if there are opportunities for obligations to be sought in relation to a development. Of course, we have our planning obligations SPG and the policies in the LDP that really define the obligations that we ask for. It can be that the other things that we can look for other obligations in relation to specific local projects when they're justified, but we do just have to be careful of what the remit is of planning obligations and what we can ask them for.
Okay, because I think that's probably something we'll talk about on Monday, Chris, at the Democratic Services Committee. Just make sure that we cover that within that discussion. Thanks very much, Richard, and good luck in your new role.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Councillor Pat Hebron.
I'm still quite naive about this S106. Maybe I'm on the Democratic Service Committee, maybe I'll become more enlightened about it then. But if we've got any personal queries, can we contact you if we've got anything particular to our wards? Richard? Hello?
Have you gone again, Richard? Oh,
if you have, I don't know.
Okay.
I would suggest, Councillor Pat, that if you have any enhancements such as road crossings or pedestrian islands, that sort of thing, or enhancements in a park in your area or something, you know, speak to the relevant officers and ask them if there's any Section 106 money available towards such projects.
Sorry, I think I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, great. It's yes. Do come to me. Come to me really if you've got questions about the availability of 106 money for your area, because we've got I've got a great big spreadsheet of available money. So it's there's hundreds of individual pots of money. It's but yeah, come to me and drop me an email, and I'll see if there's anything available in your area. Of course, normally because they come from housing developments, then if you haven't had anything built in the last sort of 5 years or so, then the pots might be getting a little bit low. So at the moment, it's areas like say Abergele and Sandina Junction where there tend to be a little bit more money available right now. But yeah, please get in touch with me if you've got any questions about that.
Okay, thank you.
Got Sean Williams with a hand up. Sean?
Hi, Councillor Chris. Thank you for letting me in. I'm only coming in because I'm very conscious of the comments that have been made about this revised protocol that's coming to Democratic Services Committee on Monday. Within that revised protocol, the only reference is to the spend will be in line with the Section 106 spending protocol. Now, my understanding is that there's a spending protocol that's already in place, which involves liaison with local members. I'm not sure whether Richard is suggesting that needs to be reviewed, and I can catch up with Richard obviously before our meeting on Monday. But the reference within the protocol for liaison with local members is very brief because it will just include a link to that Section 106 spending protocol.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Sean. I've got Councillor Roger who's got waving his hand but not putting his blue hand up. Councillor Roger, if you want to unmute your microphone first.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Two questions, if I may, please, Chair.
Sure.
First question, Chair, is let's see now. Can we use SPGs to safeguard and improve 106 agreement? Did you hear that?
Yes. So did you say can we use SPGs to safeguard and improve Section 106 agreements? Is that?
That's right.
What do you mean by improve Section 106 agreements?
Well, probably to guarantee that we can get the right money to do the right thing for our communities, you know.
I mean, obviously so you mean improve Section 106 agreements going forwards for new ones that are signed?
Yeah.
You mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, absolutely. The SPGs will be under review as part of the replacement LDP process, and so I'd encourage members to really to engage with officers in planning policy with that process and the various the consultations and the stages we'll be going through, so that if they feel that there are particular infrastructure types and this sort of thing that are missing from the SPG or that aren't given enough weight in with planning decisions, then speak to us about that and see, and we'll have to see if there's the evidence there to support that. Then look to make those changes, because there is a huge list of different obligations in the potential obligations in the SPG, but it's a relatively short list that are commonly requested from developments. But yes, the SPGs will be up for review as part of the LDP process.
Thank you for that. I've got one more question, if I may. This has been ongoing for some time, as far as I'm concerned. Marine Drive, Roseland-on-Sea. There's a development there of about 14 flats, very close to the golf links. And those apartments, luxury apartments, are going for about 900,000, thereabouts. We never got any 106 money for that development, Richard. Can you explain why?
Yes, I can. I know the one you're talking about. Was it the house there that was called the Oddstone?
That's right.
That's the one. Yes, with that development, is it? Yeah, I can't remember how. Is it 12 or 18 flats, something like that? And they are on the market for a huge amount of money. Now, as part of the planning application process, we undertook the applicants for that submitted some information about the development, about their costs, and which on paper showed that the development wasn't viable for planning obligations. So they weren't asked to sign a Section 106 agreement for affordable housing or other planning obligations. Now, with the development well underway and the houses and the flats on the market, then they are looking to sell them for significantly more than they told us at the time of doing the viability assessment, which was a number of years ago now. So whether they intentionally provided data that was misleading to us at the time, or whether their plans for the site evolved over time as part of the development, we can't really know. But for that site and with unfortunately some others that are in a similar position, then it's too late for us to do anything. But there have been a few sites with that one. There's the former St Winifred's development as well, where the flats were sold for significantly more than we were told at the time of the planning application. That did raise quite a lot of concerns that there are some developments that it's very, very difficult for us to accurately assess at the planning application stage. And although we can't go back and do anything about those developments now, what we're looking at doing as part of the replacement plan process is look to have some sort of clawback policy, or so we can, even if the evidence that's submitted in some circumstances shows that it's not viable, then we may be able to get the applicants to sign a Section 106 agreement, so that if the sale prices of the flats or houses increases further down the line after it's built, then we could at that point get a contribution from them. So we are looking to try and resolve that with future developments further down the line, but unfortunately we can't do anything about that one now.
Okay. Are you talking about legislation here, or are you talking about a private agreement?
We're talking about the replacement local development plan and policies in that, and Section 106 agreements. So we're not talking about legislation, but we're talking about legal agreements and local plan policy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Just on that, Councillor Roger, you will know how frustrating it's been to members of the Planning Committee when it comes to Section 106 and how the agreements have been agreed and then squashed because of the non-viability of development, only for the development to be sold for considerably more than what they were saying. And for me, it's where officers have let the residents of Conway down by not being robust enough in the agreements, and that is to the detriment of everybody in Conway. And it certainly needs sorting out once and for all going forward. I don't think it's acceptable, never has been acceptable, and there's been too many of occurrences since I've been a councillor, which is only since 2012. Anyway, we've got Councillor Chris Cater who wishes to come in.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not a member of the committee, but I would just like to follow on from what Councillor Anne was saying earlier about the Section 106 spending protocol, which I've actually got in front of me here. It's dated October 2019. I think it depends very much between the places with place plans, because obviously if you've got a place plan in position, then there will be a local board, and it is quite straightforward to get the consultation with the local board off the ground. My own ward doesn't have a place plan, and I notice in the protocol that it mentions that the consultation should go to the relevant local area forum. Would that be Area Forum North in my case? And then the outcome of this would be submitted to the appropriate head of service. Presumably that would mean highways if it was a highways issue, the cabinet member, and then local members will be consulted, inviting comments. So there is actually a mechanism in the protocol, and that's there in black and white. I'm looking at it now. So just thought I'd tell you that for information.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chris. Do we have any other speakers or any other comments? Nobody showing their hands. Okay. I think then we'll put it to the vote. The recommendation is that the findings of the section.
I think this was I think this was for information only, really, rather than requiring any.
Oh, right, okay. Well, the recommendations are that the findings of the Section 106
my apologies.
Monitoring Report Appendix 1 and the approach to the Section 106 Community Infrastructure Levy, or CIL, are noted. If members are happy for this to be noted, could they please show with their hands?
Chair, can I just go through the names just to make sure it's clear? Yeah, is that
all right?
Okay?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Councillor Carol Beard.
Sorry, approved.
Yeah. Councillor Phil Capper.
Yeah, noted.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
Noted.
Thank you. Councillor Sam Cotton.
Noted.
Councillor Pat.
Noted.
Councillor Chris Hughes. I think he might well have left the meeting. Councillor Ian Jenkins.
Casino.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Councillor Abdul Khan. Oh. Councillor Don Milne.
Noted.
Thank you. Councillor Roger. Councillor John Roberts. John? No? Okay. Councillor Nigel Smith.
Noted.
Councillor Bob. Yeah. That's Councillor Joan.
Noted.
Thank you. And Councillor Aaron.
Yeah, good to know.
Thank
Yep,
you.
agreed.
That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I just ask Councillor Roger, it may be worth you putting a topic selection form in for the Section 106 agreements, to be looked at as to why developers are able to rescind their agreements and then sell the properties for far higher prices going forward. Might be a good one for us to have a look at.
Councillor Roger, you're on mute.
Does Richard agree?
Didn't quite catch that.
Does Richard agree?
You would agree? Okay.
Is he happy about that?
I think I'd just say that it's not so much a case of we haven't had Section 106 agreements sort of turned over and it's been the, but it's part of the planning application process before the Section 106 agreements are signed, that in the past there have been some developments that we've had evidence which we've received and assessed in good faith, but unfortunately after the horse has bolted, then there's not much we've been able to do further down the line when they start the development. I have met previously with colleagues from development management and housing strategy to discuss this issue, and because we know it has been a problem, so it's something that we're looking to deal with already as part of the replacement local development plan process.
Yeah, it'd still be a good topic to bring through the political process, so we'd have an idea of we'd have an idea of how many applications that we've lost out on monies, and the sort of quantities of monies that we have lost out on. But that's up to Councillor Roger if he wants to bring it forward as a topic.
Chair, can I suggest I'll speak to Councillor Roger after the meeting and ask what he wants to do.
Yeah. So I want to thank you, Richard, for your report, and congratulations on your new position. And I think that means that our meeting is at a close.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to the members. It's nice to get back to democracy, and I look forward to working with you going forward. Thanks, everybody.